Now I know what you're thinking. This series basically has Hayato go giddy every single time he's on a train. Not today. No, this is what he actually looks like right now. Even Shasha points out this is weird by Hayato's standards. I would say he's filled with determination. I would also say the villains aren't slouching either. And once more, I must reiterate that Seiryu comes off as the "what is this feeling in the depths of the organ that pumps out my blood" type whenever he starts talking about Hayato and the Shinkansen. After the opening, we are treated to this lovely image of Hayato on the ground. Shashat has some interesting ideas of what martial arts training involves, such as carrying heavy stuff, or driving fists through fire and water, or getting struck by lightning. I do admit, I wonder what kind of anime does a robot like Shashat even watch. I assume Pokemon just because of a voice actor joke. Okay, so it's time for training, and training actually starts with Hayato getting ordered to do chores, and wipe down things like Karate Kid. Obviously, we're not shown the whole cleaning sequence, that would be boring. We're treated to a conversation of, well, duh, this is a joint training exercise, and it's totally about facing Byakko. After the place twilight sparkles, we begin with the bows, and they're ready to actually do training. And by we, I mean, and by they, it's really just Hayato and Tatsumi. Ryuji's not really doing much. Here we get some flexibility training, which honestly, this whole sequence is pretty accurate of what martial arts training is. Hayato watches demonstrations, then Tatsumi corrects Hayato's incorrections and imperfections. I actually love this sequence with Tatsumi and Hayato, mainly because it brings me way back to when I started doing martial arts. Tatsumi right here, for example, is probably criticizing Hayato for either poorly chambering his kick and poorly executing it, or just poor stance work, which makes balance really bad. I had to deal with this type of thing years ago. Probably the latter, mainly because of Hayato's reaction to Tatsumi barely moving his leg. But wait, shouldn't Ryuji be teaching him? Meanwhile, food. And much to Tatsumi's chagrin, he uses a chicken wing over his usual antics. But I think about the most important part here with Akita and Tsurunuki speculating about Hayato's motives. Motives that become abundantly clear in the next few scenes. At night, we see Ryuji and Hayato mull over how unusual it is for the Shinkalion inventor's children to be the Shinkalion drivers. We also get more details on the development of the Shinkalion project and all the wonderful explosions that went into it. But we do get some more dialogue between Hayato and Ryuji, mainly the whole, "Were you disappointed that I wasn't the one training you?" Obviously, Hayato is far too nice to turn down at Tatsumi. It's honestly small moments like this that make me like this show and realize why I enjoy watching it, such as Ryuji talking about how he dealt with the grief of his father's passing by hyper-fixating on martial arts. That's honestly a real thing people do when dealing with grief. And it's honestly these small moments that make this all worth it. It's here where Ryuji likens karate as a dialogue without words. So basically, having Tatsumi do the early training was a dialogue without words. It basically said, okay, this is how dedicated you are to actually wanting to learn martial arts. Now I'm going to train you for realsies. Combat is a dialogue, after all. Time for Ryuji's training. I must say, it's more like what you expect by now. It's basically combat as a dialogue, and that's what Hayato's scheme is going to be. They're going to confront Byakko, and combat will be a dialogue. Futaba and Izumi are fully in on the plan. Now they head into their Shinkalions and go forth into the underground. Byakko attacks them. The episode ends with Seiryu ready to leap into battle. In the next episode, the battle continues, and it turns out Byakko sort of expected Seiryu to leap in by now, but he can't do this. Seiryu really can't. He packs himself up, walks out of the Shinkalion, and is confident Hayato won't kill Byakko. The villains go and say, okay, maybe we're the bad guys after all. We've been doing all this manipulating heart stuff, treating it as a weakness, but what if not having a heart makes us weak to begin with? After all, humanity didn't even know they existed, and they aren't fighting them to extinction, they're defending those they care about. The only reason they entered the underground in the first place is because they were challenged, and because they were threatened on multiple occasions, not because of any grand scheme or anything. It's the ultimate assuming malice when you could have just not assumed malice. But Byakko ends up disarmed, Hayato refuses to kill Byakko and just wants to talk, but unfortunately there's a certain law when you explain a plan too thoroughly. The success of any given plan is inversely proportional to how much you explain it beforehand. And of course, sitting on the sidelines was Torame, who has been a jerk and, well, now actively joins the fight, interrupting any possible dialogue and just simply ending peace right here. The heroes shoot him, Byakko holds Torame in place. One explosion later, Hayato isn't too happy about this, especially since Seiryu was the last words that Byakko uttered to Hayato. In the end, we see Ryuji and his dad's old photo, and he hands it to Hayato. And Hayato senses a disturbance with it, specifically one of the figures. Those of you with sharp eyes know that this would eventually become Iza. Torame survived explosion and is a bit pissed, and Byakko is seemingly dead. Well, he ain't dead, he's just in a different part, but he can't exactly move. But hey, a new agent has arrived, Kairen, and Kairen does end the episode by doing Byakko in. The end. These two episodes are actually great together. This honestly is sort of what I wanted more from Shinkalion with its expanded cast. Have the characters go on life-changing field trips with one another, and then have it pay off in some way or another. In terms of martial arts training, I will say it's pretty accurate to real life. A lot of martial arts training is just repetitive motion, not the flashy things you see in movies. And, well, if you ever want to get good at anything, you need to do it a lot or mimic the conditions similar to the real deal. And as cheesy as the whole, combat is merely a dialogue without words, sounds at the surface level, especially from a kid's show. I have to say, this isn't too inaccurate from the truth. Obviously, going up to someone and punching them in the face doesn't exchange much, but when you actually pull the scope outwards and look at the big picture, the history of humankind and combat, war is a massive cultural exchange. People are displaced and thus ideas go through war. People end up getting captured and they exchange ideas. Even products. I think coffee was introduced to Europe with the various wars the Ottoman Turks waged upon the rest of Europe. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not a history channel, so you can probably find a history channel or just read it up. Those are just my thoughts on the episodes. Please consider liking, subscribing, tipping the channel, and Kofi. This is Cyril signing off.